Girls Can Tell, the podcast where honesty comes with a punchline. New episodes every Tuesday on all major podcast platforms.
Let me ask you something. Is being single in your 50s a problem for you? How much time and energy do you spend every week trying not for it to be? Do you think most people this age are too damaged, come with too much baggage, or are just inherently flawed, and that's why they're single? Do you still believe there's someone out there who's perfect for you, you just haven't found them yet? Most importantly, do you still have hope? This sounds like an opening to some self-help seminar where I'm about to pitch you some 5-step program in a workbook. It's not. There's no program or workbook, although I might make one. And I don't care if you take my advice or ignore it completely. But these are questions most of us never stop moving long enough to actually ask ourselves. I'm 53, divorced twice, spent 10 years not dating after a second marriage and a few girlfriends ended. Then I jumped back in about a year ago, dated 4 people, a couple back to back, and I've been single since summer with exactly 0 dates. Not for a lack of trying. I'm on the apps every day, swiping and matching, but I'm also screening, and most people don't make it past the texting phase. A friend of mine, also in radio, also runs multiple podcasts, heard me explaining my process over dinner one night. He stopped me halfway through and said, "Wait, what? That's insane. That's brilliant, but insane. That's what your podcast should be about." I laughed it off, but about a week later, he brought it up again, told me he'd been thinking about it all week, almost demanded that I at least do an episode on it, and said other people needed to hear this. So, here we are. My dating app vetting process. The system that filters out 98% of matches before they ever get to the first date, and has a 100% success rate with the ones who do make it through. Let me be honest. I didn't want to talk about this publicly, for a few reasons. First, it's personal. The reasons you don't pursue someone are the kinds of thoughts that live in your head. You don't say them out loud because they could hurt people's feelings. And despite what you might think from listening to this show, I'm actually not trying to hurt anyone. Second, I've met people from these apps. Things start well, we're texting, we're clicking, maybe we even go on a date or two. I rarely mention I have a podcast, but if it comes up, I definitely don't tell them the name of it. But somehow they find out. And I can always tell when it happens, too. Suddenly they know things about me that I never mentioned, or they start interpreting everything I say through the lens of something I said on an episode 3 months ago. An innocent comment that was fine yesterday suddenly becomes a problem because they heard me talk about relationships or dating or whatever and decided that I'm either an asshole or I'm only interested in them for podcast material. Neither is true. I started this show because of the apps, not the other way around. With one exception, one extreme situation that needed to be addressed, I've never used anything from someone I've actually matched with and dated as content. But here's an unintentional plus of doing this kind of podcast. It helps filter out people who aren't compatible with me without having to waste 3 months discovering it. If someone finds the show, listens to a few episodes, and decides I'm not for them, that just saved both of us a lot of time and emotional energy. I didn't start the show for that reason. I do it because emails tell me that it helps people, and I have to believe them. But my friend was right. The process is worth talking about. So let's break it down. Phase 1. The swipe. First impressions matter more than you think. If you listened to a past episode, you heard me do this live. I was swiping through profiles and explaining my decisions in real time. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. But I was trying to be honest, not liked. Everyone starts with physical attraction. That's biology. If I find someone attractive, I check the second photo because I swear sometimes it looks like a completely different person. If the second photo holds up, I move to location. Now, location is critical. I'm not interested in someone on traveling mode passing through Chicago for a weekend, and I'm not interested in someone who lives 100 miles away in the suburbs. Long distance doesn't work. It never works. People lie to themselves about this, but it never works out. Then I check age and occupation. Age because I'm not raising someone else's teenagers and I'm not dating someone old enough to be my mother's friend. Occupation because certain jobs are immediate red flags for me. Flight attendants, for example, are usually train wrecks. Nothing against them as people, but the lifestyle doesn't work for me. Irregular schedules, constant travel, long stretches of being unavailable, constant sex with coworkers. It's just incompatible with pretty much what anyone needs in a real relationship. Now, if that all checks out, I read the bio. If there's no bio at all, I'm out. As I've said before, if you can't be bothered to write 3 sentences about yourself, you're either lazy, uncreative, or hiding something. None of those are appealing. If there is a bio, I look at 2 things: what it says and how it's written. Content first. Is it generic? I love to laugh, travel, and spend time with friends and family. Right. So does everyone. Tell me something real. What do you actually do? What matters to you? What would make me want to talk to you? Then I look at the writing itself: spelling, grammar, punctuation. Now here's where people think I'm insane. But if there are periods or commas with no space after them, I'm out. I know how it sounds. I know it seems petty, but hear me out. Your phone autocorrects most mistakes. It practically forces you to see errors and fix them. If you're posting a bio with obvious formatting issues, it means you wrote it, posted it, and never looked back. You didn't even proofread it once. You didn't care. And if you're paying that little attention to something so important, the first impression you're making on potential partners, what else do you pay that little attention to? Plans? Conversations? Relationships? Probably all of them. And I'm not sticking around to find out. So, age appropriate, within 20 miles, compatible lifestyle, no horses. Yes, that's a thing. I'll explain later. A decently written bio that shows some personality. Now, if all that lines up, I swipe right. And then I immediately forget about them because there's a 49% chance I'll never hear back, maybe less. So I don't get my hopes up. I just move on to the next profile or close it altogether. Phase 2, the first text, or where 98% of people fail. If someone does respond, this is where it gets interesting, or doesn't. Most first messages are a variation of hey or hi, how are you, which is fine. It's not creative, but it's not a deal breaker. What matters is what happens next. I'll respond with something they can actually work with, like a question, a comment, something with a hook they can grab onto if they have any personality at all. And 98% of people don't. They'll give me one-word answers, or they'll ask a boring follow-up question that goes nowhere, or they'll just stop responding entirely after 2 exchanges. Here's an example. I matched with someone whose bio said they loved trying new restaurants, so I asked them what the last great place they discovered was. Her response? There's a lot of great places. That's it. No specifics, no follow-up or question about what do you like or what about you? Just a dead-end sentence that tells me she either doesn't care or doesn't know how to have a conversation. I gave her one more shot and asked if she had a favorite type of cuisine. I like everything. Done. Move on. Compare that to someone who said, there's this tiny Korean spot in Pilsen that does the best whatever I ever had. The owners are this older couple who barely speak English, but they're so sweet. Have you ever been? Now that is a real answer. It tells me she pays attention to details, that she notices people and can paint a picture with words, and she's inviting me into the conversation instead of shutting it down. That's someone I want to keep talking to. 98% of matches can't do this. They're either bad at texting, not interested, or so used to getting matches they don't put any effort in. Whatever the reason, they're out. That leaves 2% who can actually carry a conversation. Part 3, the texting phase, 2 to 8 days. If someone makes it past the first exchange, we move on to what I like to call the texting phase. This lasts anywhere from 2 to 8 days, depending on how often we're going back and forth. This is where you get to know someone, what they do for work, what their daily life looks like, what they care about, whether your schedules and lifestyles could actually mesh. I'm looking for a few things here. Consistency. Do they text regularly or do they disappear for days at a time with no explanation? Inconsistency early on is a preview of what the relationship will probably be like. Effort. Are they asking questions, showing interest, or is it all one-sided and me doing all the work? Red flags. Do they complain constantly, talk shit about their ex or just about their adult kids, drop hints about drama in their life? Can they take a joke made at their expense and laugh at themselves? Chemistry. Does the conversation flow easily? Are there moments where we're both laughing and we can build on each other's jokes? Or does it feel like pulling teeth? If we're texting multiple times a day and it's flowing naturally, this phase takes 2 or 3 days. If it's slower, maybe twice a day, it might take a week. About 4% of the original 2% make it through this phase. So now we're down to a very small number. Phase 4, the phone call, where you learn more in 15 minutes than you would in weeks of texting. If someone survives the texting phase, we move to a phone call. This is where you learn so much. Voice, energy, how they think on their feet, whether they can hold a real conversation without the safety net of typing and deleting. Text lets you craft responses. You can think about what you want to say, edit it, make yourself sound smarter or funnier than you actually are. A phone call doesn't give you that luxury. It's in real time and live, and it tells you immediately whether there's actual compatibility. I've had calls where someone who seemed great over text turned out to be boring as hell. No energy or humor, just flat responses to every question, where 15 minutes feels like an hour. But I've also had calls where someone I was on the fence about completely won me over. Their personality came through in a way that it couldn't over text. We talked for hours without realizing it. Every single person who's made it to this phase, the first call lasted at least 2 hours. Now, I think that tells me the system is working. If you can talk to someone for 2 hours without feeling forced, there's definitely something there. From here, we either do a second call to dig deeper, move to a video chat if I have any doubts of who their picture says they are, or almost always just skip straight to the planning a date. Phase 5, the date. This is the final phase, the in-person meeting. At this point, we're talking about 2% of the 4% of the 2% who made it through every other filter. And that might sound like a ridiculously small number, like the system is too harsh, or like I'm filtering out too many people. But the thing is, out of everyone who's made it to this phase, I've ended up in a relationship with 100% of them. Not dated for a few weeks and fizzled out, or went on 3 dates and realized it wasn't working. Actual relationships. The system works because by the time we meet in person, I already know they can hold a conversation, they're consistent and reliable, we have chemistry, our lifestyles are compatible, and there's no glaring red flags. The date isn't a test, it's just a confirmation of what we've already established. Is it perfect? Not really. But it's effective. Am I missing out on potentially great people by being selective? I'm sure I am. There's probably someone out there who's terrible at texting but amazing in person, or someone who doesn't know how to write a bio but would be perfect for me. But really, I don't have time to find out. At 50, every relationship costs more time and energy and more emotional investment. And if it doesn't work out, I don't get those months back. So I screen pretty hard. I filter aggressively and I cut people loose at the first sign of incompatibility. Because my time is valuable. When you're 25, you can afford to give everyone a chance. You can date someone for 6 months, realize it's not working, and then just move on with most of your life still ahead of you. At 53, you don't have that luxury. Or at least I don't feel like I do. So I built a system that saves both of us time. If we're not compatible, we figure that out in the texting phase, not 3 months into a relationship when we're both emotionally invested. There's a larger point I'm trying to make here. People will call you picky, and they'll say you're too rigid or set in your ways and too demanding. Maybe they're right, but I'd rather be alone than wasting 6 months on someone who was never going to work out anyway. I know what I want, I know what I need, and I know what doesn't work for me. I'm not willing to compromise on big things just to avoid being single. Does that mean I'm too set in my ways to date? Maybe. But it also means I respect myself enough not to settle. And if that makes me undateable, well then so be it. I'd rather be undateable than miserable, because I've already done that. And it sucks. So that's the process. It might sound harsh, but it's pretty effective. And if you're on the apps wondering why nothing's working, maybe you need a system too. Maybe you need to stop giving everyone a chance and start giving the right people a chance. Because at this age, your time is too valuable to waste on people who are never going to make it past texting anyway. And for God's sake, put a space after your comma or periods. Come on. What's wrong with you?